Welcome back to the RotoMoto Fantasy Show. My name is Donnie, and on this episode of Before You Pick, I have your 5 riders plus 2 bonus riders for a grand total of 7 riders that I want you to look at before you lock in your picks for Houston 1 2021. Typically, this is where we would review some of the numbers for the last round, but since this is an opening round of a brand new season, then there is really nothing else to put here. But I will take this time to remind you, if you haven't already, to hit that little subscribe button right below the video and tick the little bell for some extra credit if you would. YouTube uses the subscriber count as kind of a metric to gauge when they are considering recommending a new channel to somebody. And it's something I can use if and when we ever get the chance to find a sponsor. This is, after all, a completely privateer effort made possible by viewers like you, and if you would like to help support the channel, you can do so via our Patreon. You can find the link in the wordy bits below. And finally, be sure to follow RotoMoto on Twitter and Instagram so you can stay in the know with qualifying cheat sheets, injury reports, and up-to-the-minute race day news. Without further ado, let's get straight into the picks. There's no denying that Austinfaulkner is the man to beat this season. To be fair, he's been arguably the man to beat for the last 3 seasons, but with AC, Ferrandis, McElrath out of the class, Cooper and Martin on the other coast, this is as crystal clear as a championship could be for Faulkner if he can keep the jet out of his head. 11 of his last 15 coastal rounds have seen him finish in the top 2, with 9 of those being on top of the podium. He's now one of the most experienced in the class, and I expect him to finally ride like it. The second 250 rider is Red Bull KTM's Jass Pettis. He's not pitting under the same truck as Cooper and Mar, but make no mistake, the Canadian is going to be on top-notch equipment. Jess raced 5 dates in 2019, flirting with the top 10 in the first 4 before exploding for a 5th place finish in his final round of 2019. The guys have been very generous by giving him a 4 handicap here in a very weak 250 class. The East has a very hourglass shape with a lot of guys at the top and bottom, but very thin in the middle, and Pettis should be a guy to just simply eat that up. One 250 rider that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole is Max Volan. The kid may well be a future star, but I feel like he's being thrown to the wolves here in 2021 against some of the best in the world. With experience, he may grow and turn out to be a solid pick later down the line, maybe even this season, but for right now, I just cannot recommend enough to pass on him at a 1. That is very little wiggle room for a kid that has proved literally nothing at this point in his career. My high handicap hero for H1, which is given each week to a rider with a double-digit handicap, will go to Logan Carnell. This isn't really a reach, and I think he could very easily find his way on every single team. I expect a higher pick trend here than most double-digit guys are going to get. Number 88 for the 2nd year in a row. Logan has made 12 main events in the 250 class over the past 2 seasons, and even managed to put a 250 into the 450 main in Salt Lake last year. When on his game, Logan is capable of fighting for top 15 finishes, and I expect to see that continue this week and for the entire 2021 season. Moving on to the 450 class, my all-star selection is Marvin Musquin. Normally, I would be concerned with the knee injury that held him out of the 2020 season, if not for him coming out hard in the 2020 outdoor season and looking like he never missed a beat. The first round of the season is always a wild card, so I'm usually targeting a slightly higher handicap in the Premier class, and Marv's 4 is exactly what I'm looking for. A top 5 should be no problem for the Red Bull KTM rider, and even if he does run into the trouble, that 4 handicap will give him just enough breathing room to salvage a solid score. I think the most interesting pick in the 450 class is Joey Savaci. A 5 handicap gives him a little bit of cushion and a good opportunity to break into the 40-point range. Remember in 2019, Joey won heat races, led laps in the main, and was consistently a top 5 threat. He's still on elite equipment, but I think the Rocky Mountain tent will be good for his psyche, as he's no longer the savior of a team like with JGR, or having the massive expectations of being Eli's teammate at Monster Cowie. There is a little danger here as Joey hits the ground a little more than I'm comfortable with, so don't consider him an absolute sure thing just yet. A guy that I would stay away from at H1 is Martin Davalos. Everyone knows that the Marty party is in full effect and is a rad place to be, but those of you that have been with the party before know just how up and down the ride is. My bet here is to pass on Marty until he has that bad race. It could even be next week. After his first disaster, his handicap will surely rise, which will make way for a safer bet at an even more massive score. To pick Marty at all, I need to reasonably think his upside is going to be 40 points. And to get there with a 3 handicap, I would need him to finish top 6. And we've seen him do that before, sure, but with this stacked and well rested of a roster, I just don't think this is the place for it to happen. The FFL is an optional wager, which is short for first to the finish line. This is the very first rider to finish the line for the first time in the main events. Certain tracks have the finish line that is all the way at the end of the lap, and some tracks, the finish line is shortly after the first turn. At Houston 1, the finish line is early in the lap after just a single rhythm and a triple. This will leave it open for guys like Justin Bogle that get hot starts but not be able to hold off the charging stars for multiple rhythms and bull turns. If you're the type that wants to take an FFL in round 1, I would look at the guys on star bikes. Christian Craig is already known for great starts, and Nichols is no slouch either. Those bikes have all the power in the world and will have an easy time beating the field to the first turn, but with all that being said, my money is on Austinfaulkner, who has consistently made it to the front of the pack the last 3 years until somebody puts him on notice. In the 450 class, I think it comes down to Adam Cianciarulo and Ken Roczen, and pretty much the entire KTM, Husqvarna, Gas conglomerate, or more specifically, Cooper Webb and Zach Osborne. It's pretty much a toss-up which of these 4 can get it done. Osborne and Roczen tied at the top with 6 each in 2020, with AC and Webb snagging 2 each. But 3 of Osborne's and both of Webb's came in the last 7 rounds in SLC, where the Austrian bikes ate up the competition, snagging every single one of the 7 450 FFLs. With that in mind, and gun to my head, I'll take Roczen for FFL, or AC if you're feeling spicy. My way too early Thursday team looks like this. I have RJ Hampshire as my 250 All-Star. I like Faulkner, but when I'm picking an early team, I tend to err on the side of caution, and RJ is a little less likely to break a rib in practice. I have Jass Pettis and Logan Carnow on the team for the reasons already stated before, and I'm rounding out my early squad out with the All-South's Curran Thurman, who had a breakout 2020 with 6 main events, capped off with a career best 11th at SLC 6. For the 450s, I have Marvin Musquin as my All-Star and Joey Savaci for the reasons we talked before. I'm adding Brock Tickle to the squad. Probably the steadiest guy out there of non-All-Stars, and a 6 handicap is a nice safe cushion. With this stacked field, I have Vince Friese as my 8th and final rider, mainly because of his potential to get a start and be out front early. It's very important for me to have all 8 in the main at round 1, so I'm looking for guys that I feel confident can avoid that trouble. I do have 2 FFLs penciled in, and it is all green. Austinfaulkner on the 250s, Adam Cianciarulo on the big bikes. After the race, be sure to head right back here to the RotoMoto YouTube page for the first ever live fantasy support group. This is a brand new segment that I am trying out for 2021, where I will go live for about just 1 hour immediately following the race. I'll chat directly with you guys, and we will break down the round as the fantasy numbers roll in, as well as talk some trash or just talk some moto. Be sure to follow RotoXMoto on Twitter and Instagram if you want reminders for that video, as well as those qualifying cheat sheets that drop about an hour before the gates do. This week only, I will actually be dropping the enhanced cheat sheets on Twitter and Instagram to the general public to show you guys just what you're missing if you are not a Patreon supporter, in addition to the videos and podcasts that are Patreon exclusives. As always, my name is Donnie. Thank you guys so much for watching the RotoMoto show. See you on race day.